Oliver, it's been another crazy week in media. This week really culminating in some big news yesterday on Wednesday. That is that Paramount boss David Ellison, who has really put together some significant news in recent weeks since taking over Paramount, signing this huge deal to bring UFC to Paramount's platforms. The $1.5 billion deal with South Park creators Trey Parker and Matt Stone to keep them on Comedy Central and Paramount Plus. And now we're hearing that this deal to acquire Bari Weiss's The Free Press, this is the conservative, right-leaning website that is mostly an opinion site. But apparently Ellison is very taken with Bari and this site, and is reportedly nearing a deal to purchase it for north of $100 million, which I think is a pretty astounding number by any stretch, considering what it is that you can read and consume on this site and its current financials. Oliver, you've done some new reporting on this, and hearing that it is indeed very close to being done. What are you hearing about it?
Well, a few things, John. One, I think most obviously is that if you're inside CBS News, you're probably, the place has already been teetering, given all the turbulence it's undergone over the last year or so with 60 Minutes and with the Trump settlement and with the loss of their news chief, Wendy McMahon, with Bill Owens from 60 Minutes resigning. I mean, this place has really been in a hurricane. And now I think the people over at CBS are realizing this is not going to end with the acquisition by Skydance. It's actually just beginning. And they're going to have to take editorial cues from Bari Weiss, who, for people who don't know, is, she's a very difficult figure to classify. I think the best way to describe her is maybe like the things she stands against. Anti-DEI, for instance. She's anti-woke. I don't know if that's like a great way to describe her. She is very, pro-Israel, but she doesn't fall neatly into a camp. You can't say she's part of the MAGA crowd. She's not really, even though they tend to like her. She's certainly not someone who's on the left. She is a difficult person to classify, but she says things, I think, and she publishes things that make the wealthy class feel, I think, comfortable and aligns with their viewpoints. And I think she's enamored a lot of media executives and media owners. And so now David Ellison, one of those media executives and media owners and billionaires, is nearing a deal to purchase the Free Press for an absurd amount of money and install Bari Weiss into a very senior position over at CBS News. And I think there's a lot of things to unpack here, but the big takeaway is that David Ellison is going to disrupt CBS News. Like, this is not going to be the CBS News that everyone has known for decades. This is not Dan Rather's CBS News. This is going to be something completely different.
Yeah, it certainly will be. The sort of irony here is that Ellison, when this deal came together and Ellison came out and held these press conferences to speak with reporters, you were in the room in New York. He did it again in Los Angeles subsequently, came out and said that, look, he's not going to politicize this company in any way. I think that for most people, that sounds great. Like, why would we want an entertainment company to be politicized, especially under this administration? They're going to try to maintain an independent streak. They're going to do what's best for their business, what's best for their audience. And Paramount is a giant company, right? I mean, it's still small by big tech standards these days, but it's a big company. It's got a big film studio, and of course, it has the cable platforms like Comedy Central and MTV. But then there's this news division with CBS News, which is, the home of 60 Minutes and the CBS Evening News. And a lot of people still get their information from there. 60 Minutes is, I believe, the highest rated still news magazine type program on the air, and regularly wins its time slot. That's a big deal. And so the thing that kind of strikes me about this is Ellison proclaiming that he's not going to politicize the company, only for days later for us to now report that this deal to bring in Bari as a senior leader who will oversee editorial or to function in a sort of standards role, maybe some sort of ombudsman. It's kind of unclear what this is going to look like. With her and the Free Press being, an overtly, anti-woke, right-wing, right-leaning, sort of squishy right, just sort of depends on the day of the week website, it's hard for me to, I think, square this idea that we're not going to politicize the outlet, but at the same time, we're bringing in and out a website, a new outlet to be part of our kingdom here that has really sort of existed entirely as a different independent sort of political viewpoint than what you're seeing at the New York Times, the Journal, and elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, the Free Press is a political website and it has a political point of view, and it tends to, broadly skew conservative. It's like a better dressed version of some of these other right-wing websites, to be frank. It has more of an independent streak, sure. It looks, I think most importantly, it looks very polished. It looks, it reads better, but it's a better dressed website than a lot of these right-wing websites, which you can dismiss as just like, totally junk. Bari Weiss is one of the most polarizing figures, I'd say, in media right now. And so when David Ellison was answering questions at these press conferences saying we don't want to politicize the company, and most importantly, we want to be a place where people on the left and the right can see as like a neutral entity and trust the information that comes out of it. This decision to pay Bari Weiss and to acquire the Free Press flies right in the face of that, right? It doesn't make any sense if you actually don't want to politicize the company. You don't go hiring one of the most polarizing political journalists of our time. Like, that's not something you do, right? And John, I also thought it's been notable. They've been talking very openly about how they want to be financially frugal and efficient and cut costs. And we know that there are going to be very painful layoffs at CBS News, as well as the entire Paramount. And they said if they don't have money for Stephen Colbert, right? Stephen Colbert gets cut and can't afford Stephen Colbert. But then they go spend an absurd amount of money on this conservative opinion site that's housed on Substack. How do you square those two? I mean, it just seems like everything David Ellison and his lieutenants have been saying is contradicted by this one of the first major moves that they're making. And, I've been talking to media executives over the last 24 hours about this, and no one can figure out any world in which, forget, even if you like Bari Weiss, no one can figure out any world in which the site, which is said to generate about $10 to $15 million in annual subscription revenue, we don't know what the overhead is, but how are they coming to an evaluation for this site north of $100 million, maybe $150 million? It doesn't make any sense. And so I think this decision actually looks really bad for Ellison because it lays bare that the things he's been telling the press aren't actually how he's going to govern the company. It's not going to be financially prudent if he supports it politically, and it's not going to be a place where he's politicizing the company by hiring a polarizing figure, right? Like, it's not. I don't know how you can say this is not a political move. Not a good look for Ellison, I think, just a month in.
Yeah, I mean, it seems clear from a business perspective that this is not something that would be valued anywhere near $200 million, right? Just straight up. And at the same time, if Ellison and co at Paramount are stressing the need to cut costs, we're going to have to cut. We are hearing maybe down in November, there may be new layoffs coming to the company, but at the same time, we have to spend 9 figures to acquire this conservative, I would say contrarian is maybe the better way to describe it, opinion website, and bring them in Does that make any sense? If anything, it says to me that this is a politicized decision, right? And this comes on the backs of reporting Donald Trump repeatedly saying that he has this quiet handshake deal with David Ellison to get public service announcements for Trump-related MAGA, supporting campaigns on the airwaves of Paramount-owned properties. And we've seen some kind of quiet denials of that, but not entirely, right? Paramount and Ellison are not coming out and saying, no, this is not true. They're not coming out on the record and saying, no, that's not happening. And now at the same time, you see this flare go up into the air of like, oh, we're very close to now acquiring this conservative outlet that is also going to come in and have a say in the coverage and the tone of CBS and, therefore 60 Minutes, which Donald Trump sued for $2 billion because he didn't like the way that the program was edited with its interview with Kamala Harris. It's really hard, I think, to distance, these two decisions back to back.
Imagine too, John, how enraging it's going to be at CBS News hearing that you have to say goodbye to your longtime colleagues because CBS News has to be financially disciplined, knowing that the person who now runs or, gives editorial direction at CBS News, who has a lengthy history bashing your own outlet as well as other news organizations, I would say dishonestly, has been made a millionaire 100 plus times over by David Ellison just this year. Like, how are they going to deliver that message? How is Jeff Shell going to actually write an email to them saying we need to be financially disciplined and make these tough decisions right after doing this? I mean, even if they were going to do this, you would think that they would at least have the wherewithal to do the cuts and then acquire the thing versus very openly, making this grand acquisition, and now you're going to have to 60 days later tell people that we can't afford to keep you on salary when you're making like $60,000. I don't know. It's going to be very difficult.
Especially because CBS journalists are actually delivering new reporting and information. If you go to the Free Press, which I have been reading, the top stories are another reason not to trust the quote unquote experts right now. And that is defending this idea that Israel is not committing genocide in Gaza, okay? How Zohran Mamdani could kill New York schools. That's an actual headline on the website. They really love to hate Mamdani. Free buses are a recipe for disaster because of Mamdani. Is there a dumber housing policy? These are the top stories. Is there a dumber housing policy than rent control? Where's the journalism in any of that? I actually didn't see a single reported piece. This is the top of the entire website. This is what David Ellison wants to spend $100 to $200 million on. These are conservative or contrarian takes on the news. That's great. The internet is filled with people with opinions. It's the beauty of the internet. It's what makes it fun to log on to social media websites. There's a mix of news and opinions. But paying $200 million for a Substack that houses contrarian opinions and very, very little, and I'm sure buried in here, there is some, reported piece. That's great. But if you're going to replace your CBS newsroom staff with conservative opinion guests, what does that say to both the company and also your audience at large? And for the audience, which continues to show up for 60 Minutes, which is, it takes a very smart, critical, and well-reported, very factual lens on the issues that it covers. What do you think the audience is going to do? How do you think the audience is going to respond when they find out and they are told that we're replacing some of the people behind the scenes at CBS News with these conservative and contrarian opinion writers? I mean,
right. Even if that's not what they're technically doing, right? That is what they are in practice doing.
Well, if they're going to lay off CBS News staff.
Yeah. So that's what they're doing. They're replacing CBS News staffers with Bari Weiss staffers. And it's remarkable. I mean, this site is so well funded and so well spoken about by some actually, very prominent journalists and media executives. Have they ever broken like a noteworthy story on this website? Like, what journalism exists there? I mean, it's very easy to just write takes on other people's journalism and to criticize how news organizations operate. And it's much different to actually have to deliver reporting. Reporting is tough and it's costly, it's time consuming, it's not easy. And they are just basically commenting on the news, and often with very dishonest or ill-informed takes as well. Like, we haven't even really talked about that. But like, if you take the story, for instance, about the experts, why we shouldn't trust the experts. The idea is you shouldn't trust the experts because they're saying there's a genocide in Gaza. We know that there are like, how many tens of thousands of people who have died in Gaza, children included, and that there's a famine crisis because of Israel's blockade. They might have found a few things wrong with this body that's calling it a genocide. I'm sure no organization is perfect. I'm sure there are flaws in it, but that doesn't actually disprove the larger point that they're trying to make. And this is kind of the game that the free press and other outlets play. And, more broadly, John, I think that, what's the slogan on the website?
Honest, independent, fearless.
Yes. Honest, independent, fearless. Except they have been totally missing in action, for the most part, on the biggest story in American life today, which is the authoritarian creep coming from Donald Trump in the White House. They claim that they are truth tellers, that they actually don't, they're not a safe space, right? That they're a place where they disrupt the narratives. And yet, if you read the free press, you think the biggest threat to Western civilization is DEI. Right. Like that's the take. That's what you would come away thinking. Not Donald Trump, sending armed National Guard members into cities. Not him destroying institutions and warping law enforcement like the FBI and the Department of Justice. Not a number of the things that he's done. I mean, we can't even go down the list. There's, I think, dozens of ways he's disfigured the U.S. government in his first 6 months in office. That's not the main story at the Free Press. The main story at the Free Press is DEI is really bad and it's destroying civilization. So the idea that she's some bold truth teller, she's missing on the biggest story of our time. And that should not go unsaid either. It's not only the fact that the stuff that they print is just often flawed and at times very dishonest. It's that they're not even addressing half the time the big elephants in the room, and that's because it would be politically inconvenient for her. By the way, if Biden were sending armed troops to cities, I would, and if masked federal agents were just like arresting people and tossing them into vans, I would bet the free press would be pretty outraged. Thank you for watching Power Lines. For more analysis and insight, subscribe to our YouTube channel down below, like this video, and you can watch more of us right over here.